As the level of play here in Britain and outstanding Europe as a whole, including just the basketball landscape in Europe generally, is not something that's either well known or easy information to come by, I figured I'd help fill in the gap in the basketball education space and make a video on it. As many people are familiar with the American system of colleges, I figured I'd start here. As a person who's done publicly available recruitment analysis on every signing in the league this off-season, and not publicly available self-analysis the past couple, which has gotten good feedback from people within the league, I believe that I have at least some clue about the standing of our league in relation to the rest of the basketball world. In order to be a player who can legitimately play big minutes, I would be expecting at the very least starter level productivity at a strength of schedule of around 0 to -2. So a good mid-major level. We have a 6 import quota, and this is practically used as a minimum for every import that we have in this league coming direct from college. Below, and depending on the degree of separation from that level of strength of schedule, either increased general production, so like Raekwon Brown, or a high level of specific role base such as blocks for big men production is needed. The past few seasons we have had a few direct standouts from D2 such as Taj Green and Jelani Watson-Gale, but these were incredibly gifted players amongst their level. I think this is a fact that escapes most of the hoopers in Britain, and especially the majority of our young players who escape overseas to JUCOs. In reality, to get a pro contract and a good role here, you have to at least be a good college player at a high level in college. This is why I believe players like Nedas, Dejani and Matt Goodwin really set themselves up well versus their peers who set off for JUCOs. They're already getting D1 experience, whilst accruing European pro experience and better information for scouts to take note of from other pro leagues and our own, which they should always be able to get a pro contract here. At JUCOs, the majority of our players drop out entirely, which is why I hate the system. But in the good case scenario for players, it might take at least a couple years before a D1 transfer is even afforded to you, if you're a top player, and then it might take a year for you to even get minutes. Here, whilst we've had a poor track record in the past of players getting minutes, Surrey's pathway is absolutely legit now, especially with Dan Clark and Lloyd at the helm, as evidenced by Nedas and Dejani's minutes. And London seems to be opening themselves up to young players too. If you want to go pro, unless you have Louis Tucker levels of production, so 20 points plus on good efficiency, I would very much suggest to go to Lloyd or London and express your interest unless you get a solid NCAA D1 offer. I wouldn't recommend going to the States beside the firmest of playing time guarantees at JUCO or a level above. A majority of our last year's Hoops Fix All-Stars didn't even get minutes last year. You have to be good, and there isn't time for development at JUCO. For NBL players, you're probably going to hate what I say, but the NBL is an extraordinarily hard league to scout from. Because there aren't many imports and because players from that league don't tend to go pro elsewhere, unless you're Taylor Johnson or Aaron Wright, but they had the experience from NCAA D1 being starters for 4 years. So they're not really a good example to take from. There aren't many data points to use from for clubs signing players from there. It's also exacerbated by the lack of players moving between the leagues and because they don't tend to translate very well. Bizumbru is an example. David Olf and Jack Hudson have been good role players for the Phoenix and elsewhere, but were incredible at the D1 level. Blake Bowman was a star in D1, but has taken some time to get acclimatised to our league. I've always believed that NBL D1 players deserve much more of a chance than what they get. Sam Newman is an example, and it's really good that Hafiz is getting a chance in Manchester, but it is a big risk for teams to take on when recruiting. A big thing is translatability, because when projecting across to the SLB, players need to be able to take diminished roles and compete against 6 Americans for minutes. So they need to be able to shoot from the outside well, play off ball and pick their spots, be athletic and heady enough to survive on defense against Americans. And NBL was very inefficient as a league. A reason for Luke Bizumbru's tough time in Surrey, despite the fact that I really do believe he has a spot in the SLB, and it was a terrible situation for him at Surrey. He's electric as a transition player and a robust athlete, is because his 3-point shooting didn't translate across at all. despite shooting 33% in D1, with teams daring him to shoot, and because he was stuck between two positions in the SLB, either as an undersized off-ball slasher with no three-point shot, or an initiator who didn't read the game as well as his American counterparts, nor could make defences respect his outside shot on screen coverages or simple man defence, which ruined his half-court effectiveness. There is perceivably a very big gap at the moment, but that could close with how well Hafiz does. I don't necessarily count Jordan Spencer because he was an experienced pro already before going to the NBL. To firstly gauge our position in Europe, a good measuring stick to use would be our European competition performances the past year. Both Newcastle and Bristol were truthfully amongst the top calibre of teams in the ENBL last season, both recording very impressive wins against highly regarded competition. Bristol's win against Start Lublin, who were in the top 2 of Poland at the time, whilst away in Poland and with a lot of injuries, speaks a lot to that. Both teams ran legitimate FIBA comp teams, Juventus in Lithuania and Bakken in Newcastle's case, to the last possession, while simultaneously being bottom half league play teams in the BBL. Caledonia almost got out of the hardest group in Europe Cup, beating the previous champs Anvil on the way, whilst having their own struggles in league play at the time. Based off of previous pro imports and its prior information, despite probably sounding quite an audacious thing to say to people knowledgeable about European basketball, I would firmly stick our league average in that Polish Czech league bracket, and stronger than other mid-tier leagues such as Portugal and Austria, beside their FIBA competition teams such as Sporting. A very good level amongst mid-tier European leagues. Despite the disparity in resources, I would rank our league similar to the BNXT too, considering some ENBL results that went away against their teams such as Liège and Zwolle. Given their similar equivalency to the strength of the English football system, I think the Spanish league system is a good metric to compare off of, and we are probably around a strong third-tier league on average, with our strongest teams capable of hanging around the middle of Leb Gold. As a comparison with Germany, because Germany has seemingly turned to using our league as a good place to pick up players, our starters are being exported directly to Pro A, their second tier, with middling players over here such as Mike Miller and Jabril Adekoya being able to retain a good level of play over there, or even the BBL in the case of VJ King and Al Durham. A majority of our players could probably fight a decent battle in the Europe Cup at the very least, and our best teams such as Cheshire last year, considering how they took the Euro Cup Lions to a final shot in the finals, could probably be a knockout team. As evidenced by Caledonia's games against Oradea and Bilbao though, legitimate Champions League teams are probably far too much at the moment. With the recent trend of imports, such as Tanner Stuckman direct from Leb Gold, the influx of CEBL and Australian NBL talent at Manchester, Mackie Mitchell's the starter at Arkansas, I believe our level is only set to increase. Beforehand we were very much reliant on value adds like players starting out as rookies, or like players with pro experience from similar or worse level leagues than ours, such as Nick's recruitment last season, like LaQuincy from Slovenia or Chargois from NM1. Given this and some of the promising statements by the new SLB chairman Vaughan Millett, I have reason to believe that teams' budgets are only likely to go up from now, and thus our competitiveness in the European market.